Am I wrong for treating my daughter-in-law like a child when she was acting like one? My son and his wife have been staying with us for about a month now while they prepare to move into a new place in May. My wife and I enjoy having them with us, and for the most part, my daughter-in-law is lovely, but she's very messy. I'm retired from the army, and I have always run my house to a certain set of standards, and I expect them to be followed even by guests. My son has often described his wife as someone who prefers clutter, and she generally likes to have things where she can see them. But after I voiced my displeasure over the clutter in the guest bedroom they are presiding in, as well as in the guest bath they use every day, she did begin to decrease the amount of clutter, but not to the standards I would like in my home. My daughter-in-law still leaves her makeup out in the bathroom until she gets home in the afternoon because she runs out of time in the morning to put them back. To her credit, she does clean everything once she gets home, but I don't appreciate having to stare at the mess for hours until she does get home. I tried handling it privately with my son in hopes he could talk to her, and while he did agree, he mostly made excuses about her behavior, equating it to an unstable home life, growing up with incompetent parents, and in the foster system towards her later teen years. I admit she is still quite young at 20, but my kids knew how to clean up after themselves before they were out of elementary school. My frustrations over the situation grew to head one day when she yet again left her makeup out in the bathroom, and in response, I took a trash bag and placed all of the makeup and everything underneath the sink that was hers as well. And then in the guest bedroom, every piece of clothing she owned. Ooh, why would you do that? I had no intention of actually throwing her belongings in the trash, but I wanted to show how serious I was on the matter, and I thought maybe handling it how I would have handled a teenager would have given her a bit of a wake-up call since she had seemed to miss out on it in her childhood. My daughter-in-law came home before my son, and when she discovered her things in the trash bags outside of the front door, I could tell she was rather shell-shocked. I didn't yell, but I was stern when I explained to her that her behavior had been very disrespectful, and if it continued, she would have to leave my house. My daughter-in-law didn't say much and just looked at me with wide eyes the whole time. And then, when I was done, she apologized and took all of her things back inside the room she was staying in. I could hear her crying, which seemed to me to be dramatic, and when my son got home, he apologized for my daughter-in-law's messiness, but said that the way I handled the situation was too far. I told him it was my house, my rules. Now my daughter-in-law has been keeping all of her things in her car and won't even place them in the house at all. She also has become very reserved when I am around, but is completely fine around my daughters and wife. The mess stopped, but now there is an awkwardness in the house.
My best friends tried to kill me intentionally through poisoning around 2 weeks after my 16th birthday. But my 16th birthday was a really exciting day for me because that day my mom had woke me up and surprised me with an item that I had been wanting for so long, which was a brand new Coach purse. She found a reseller on eBay, she found someone who had a new with tags bag, and she was able to surprise me with something that I didn't think was going to happen. And I was really excited, especially because I knew that my best friends and I had been planning to get together to celebrate my 16th birthday in just a couple more weeks. So I saved it because I knew that I wanted to show that off in front of the people that I cared so much about on my special day. So December 12th was the first day that I took the tags off of this bag and I brought it to my best friend's house, and I believed that she was really gonna like it too. I expected to be flooded with compliments. Instead, she just insulted me and told me that I looked hideous, that the bag was tacky. She made me change my outfit, which I had spent so long picking out and trying my best on because I always wanted to impress her. But one thing that she was not able to take from me that day and make me trade in was the bag that I had with me. And when she later would steal all of the evidence from the hospital by placing it into a tote bag, knowing that my hospital room was supposed to be guarded and that she was not allowed to take it, the one thing that I would get back from that incident was my Coach purse, and that is because it was left on the ambulance and it was given back to my family by an EMT. I assumed that there was a chance it was going to become evidence, so I placed it into a box and I never touched it again. And today, my little sister was going through all of my things and she found the purse. Now, seeing this purse feels overwhelming for a number of reasons. One of them is that it is the only physical item that is still attached, basically frozen in time from that day. And the main reason is because I had preserved it for a reason, and that reason is because there are bloodstains on it. Now, finding this coupled with the recent confessions has been very overwhelming for me, especially because for the last year I have been flooded with comments telling me that I am a liar, telling me that my trauma didn't happen, yet the only physical item that I still have very much tells me that it did happen, and their words tell me that it did happen. So please be gentle, please be kind. I wanted to share with you this devastating discovery for me and let you experience my raw feelings on it. I am literally still shaking.
One of my bridesmaids is no longer going to be my wedding because of communication issues. So for the story, we'll call her Vanessa, and I've known Vanessa since elementary school, but in middle school, she actually ended up moving 3 hours away, and even though we couldn't hang out, we still stayed in contact. So I told her, hey, if you're ever in town, please let me know. I really want to hang out. She's like, okay. So fast forward to October of 2021, she reaches out to me and she's like, hey, I'm in town. Would you like to grab a coffee? I was like, sure. We end up going to this coffee shop and we're there for like 5 hours. We both decided we had a lot of fun and we were definitely going to do this again. And so for the next year and a half, I tried to make plans with Vanessa and every single time they would fall through. Because either one of 3 things would happen. First thing, she just wouldn't answer. Second, she'd give me an excuse, but not reschedule the date. So let's say I was like, hey, you want to hang out Saturday? She'd be like, no, I'm busy. Instead of being like, no, I can hang out Sunday though. Or number 3, we'd be in the middle of planning something and she'd just disappear. So after a while, I realized that maybe she just doesn't want to hang out, which I wish she would have just been honest with me if she didn't, but whatever, I digress. And I just kind of stepped back. Well, fast forward to January of 2023. So last January, I texted her and I said, hey, my birthday's coming up. It's my 21st birthday. I really want you to be there. It's in February. Would you be able to go? And she goes, oh, when is it? And I said, that's the best part because I know you're so busy. I want you to pick the weekend so you can 100% go. She told me that, oh my gosh, that sounds so exciting. I'm free the 24th and the 25th. So I said, great. So I immediately made a group chat with a few of my friends and Vanessa. And I said, hey, my 21st birthday is going to be on the 24th, the 25th of February. It's a month away. Let me know if you can go. And everybody was like, yeah, we can go. So for the next 3 weeks, I'm sending texts just to this group chat being like, hey, what do you guys want to do? Just trying to figure out details. And I realized that everybody's responding except for Vanessa. So it's now a week before my birthday and I still haven't heard anything from her since the initial text. And so I'm like, I'll just text her. So I text her separately and I'm like, hey, I haven't heard anything from you in a minute. I just want to make sure you're still going to my birthday. And she goes, hang on, I'm at work. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then she just doesn't say anything for the rest of the day and just doesn't text me back. So the next day, I'm like, hey, I just want to make sure you're still going. It would mean a lot if you were still going, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, oh, I found out a few weeks ago that one of my family members is coming to town and I'm not going to make it. And I was like, I did tell you about this a month ago. And she goes, I know, but they don't come to town very often. I hope you have fun though. And I just responded with, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. And she goes, but we can 100% hang out this summer. And I said, okay. Did she try to reach out? No, not once. And I didn't try to reach out because I knew the plans would just fall through. So now fast forward to August of 2023, she reaches out to me and she's like, hey, I'm free this fall. I was wondering if you want to hang out. And I was like, yeah, I'm free in October. Let's do something. Do you want to come down or do you want me to drive up? And she's like, you can drive up. My parents would love to see you. So I drive up 3 hours to go see her. I'm planning to stay there for 2 days and we split the cost of an Airbnb. So I get up there and I'm like, hey, what do you want to do? And she's like, let's go shopping. I was like, great. Do you mind driving? Because I personally don't know the area this well. And she looks at me and she goes, oh, I can't. My car's not working. So she expected me to drive up 3 hours, drive her around for 2 days with no issue, and then drive back home without saying anything about her car. She never even told me about her car. And so I was just like, oh, okay, because I'm a pushover and I'm not going to say anything. And obviously it was upsetting, but I wasn't going to say anything because I was going to be with her for 2 days and I didn't want to make it awkward. So while we were there, we went to the mall and then we went to Target twice. Once for dinner, once for snacks, okay? And both times we went to Target, she was like, I got it, I'll pay. And I was like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, of course, I got it. And universally, that means that, hey, I got it, I'm going to pay, I'm not going to ask you to pay me back. And I figured that she was paying because I was driving us around and I was like, well, that's really nice. I told her thank you and she's like, of course. So after the trip had happened, I ended up going home. I texted her when I was home because she asked me to. She's like, hey, I'm so happy you're safe. And then an hour later, she texted me and said, you owe me $55.75 for the trip. So she wanted me to pay her back $55.75 for each half of the Target trips that she insisted on paying for and said, no, I got it, it's fine. And then also this ticket that I told her I'd pay for, which was $15. So she still wanted me to pay her $40.75 besides the ticket for the Target trips that, again, she insisted on paying for. So I didn't want to pay her. So I go ahead and I call my fiance and I'm like, am I being crazy like that I don't want to pay for this? And he's like, I would just pay for it. It doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal. And I was like, okay. But if we're including the 2 Target trips and the ticket, it was $55.75. So I text her back and I'm like, hey, does that include the gas that I spent money on to like drive us around? And she goes, Oh, I guess you did drive us around for 2 days. Yeah, you can go ahead and take $20 off of that. I spent $100 on gas. So she still wanted me to pay her $35.75, and I was like, you know what, whatever, I'll just do it. So I went ahead and I sent her the money, and I was like, at least I know for next time that I should pay for my own stuff, even if she insists. So after that, I was just like, I'm just gonna take a step back. But while I was visiting Vanessa, we went to this wedding dress shop. I found this wedding dress that I absolutely fell in love with, okay? And so I decided to make an appointment to go see this with my family and with my potential bridesmaids that I had in my head on December 9th at 11:30 in the morning. So after I'm done making this appointment, I go out to the car with Vanessa and I make a group chat with obviously my fiance's family, my family, and then my potential bridesmaids because I want them all to be there when I try on this beautiful dress. And I want to hear their opinion on it on December 9th at 11:30. Well, I look at Vanessa and I'm like, hey, you're going to be in this group chat because I do want you to be in my wedding. I do want you to be one of my bridesmaids. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm honored. That'd be so great. I was super excited. And it was a really cute moment. So fast forward to November 15th. It's now a month later. And I end up going to this bridal shop. I find a dress that I like so much better than the one I found with Vanessa. And so I text this group chat, the wedding group chat that I had made while sitting in the car with Vanessa. And I say, hey, guys, change of plans. We're actually going to be at this bridal shop the same day, December 9th, just at 3 p.m. So the people who are coming in from out of town, which would have been Vanessa and then my childhood best friend, can make it in time. Everybody responds and is like, absolutely fine. I love that you kept the same day. Great. Even though this is still a month away, I wanted everybody to know as soon as possible. Well, I kind of thought about it and I'm like, okay, I know it's an inconvenience now that I changed the location. And so now 2 people are going to have to drive in from out of town. So I go ahead and I make a group chat with my childhood best friend, Zoe, love her to death, and then Vanessa, and I say, hey, I know you guys are driving in from out of town. I know it's an inconvenience. Even though it's still a month away, I want to make sure you guys are not inconvenienced in the slightest. So I'm willing to host a sleepover at my dad's or my mom's and, you know, have you guys stay the night so that you don't have to scramble trying to figure out where to stay. My childhood best friend was like, absolutely sounds great. Don't care where we stay as long as like we're hanging out with you. Can't wait. Of course, I don't hear anything from Vanessa. So then on November 16th, I see that Vanessa's active on Instagram and I'm like, hey, did you see my text? I hear nothing. November 17th, I send her a text. Hey, did you see my text? Nothing. November 18th, I send her a text. Nothing. So I decided to call her on November 18th and I'm like, hey, and I left a really nice message. I was like, hey, I just haven't heard from you. I know you're super busy all the time and probably can't answer your phone. I just want to make sure that you're still planning on going to this thing because it would mean a lot and I really need you there. She immediately answers my text after I called her and says, yes, I've seen your 3 texts. I've been really busy. I'll answer when I can. And really, I just need like a yes, a no, or a, hey, I saw your text. You know, can I have a few days to think about it? Totally fine. I just needed some form of communication from her because, again, communication is an issue. So I responded with, okay, ... I completely understand you're busy. I get it, but I'm just trying to get a head count and I hadn't gotten any response from you. So I'm just trying to make sure you saw my text. And she goes, look, I've been completely busy. And honestly, I was trying to scramble and figure out if I could even drive down or not. And it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to. But please send me pictures of your dress. So I responded with, okay, thanks for letting me know. And then I was really, really pissed off, but I didn't send this text. I waited a few hours until I calmed down a little bit. And then I had said, look, if my 3 texts bothered you that much, I'm just going to go ahead and take you out of the wedding group chat. Like, I really don't want to be bombarding you with wedding texts if my 3 texts bothered you. Yeah, it was a little bit petty, but like, it was deserved. I'm thinking that she'll at least like respond or say something, but nope, she didn't. And I unfriended her on everything. And I was just like, that was it. Until January 6th of this year, where she texted me a long apology about how she was really sorry. She shouldn't have responded like that. You know, she just had a lot going on in her life, which is her excuse every single time. And how she understands that she's not part of my wedding anymore, but she wishes me the best and blah, blah, blah. And don't get me wrong, I do appreciate that she sent me a text and, you know, it gave me a little bit of closure. I did want to send her a really long text telling her that I was really upset with how that went down and how everything went down. But honestly, I'm not going to put my energy into someone who doesn't deserve it. And I saw her text come through and I kind of waited, I think 30 or 40 minutes. And then I responded with, thanks for the apology. I wish you the best. I didn't say I forgave her. I didn't say anything. She had wished me a happy new year. I didn't say it back because I was like, I'm just going to say these 2 things and then end it. But yeah, that's what ended up happening. She's blocked on everything or I've unfriended her on everything. So I don't know. I'm not going to put energy into someone who doesn't deserve it. It's 2024.
Am I the astronaut for asking my wife not to hang out with her friend who has a different lifestyle than us because I'm afraid of losing her? Throwaway account because I mostly use Reddit for work-related topics. Me, 37 male, and my wife, 35 female, have been married for 14 years. We met when we were both in college. She studied literature, I studied engineering, and was getting into tech. We were dating for 2 years when she got pregnant, and we decided to get married and start a family. We decided together that I would work and she would be a stay-at-home mom because it would be difficult for her to find a well-paying job with her major, and I was already starting to earn quite well. I've also always had a fairly conservative approach to family life, and I was so happy to be a sole provider. She always wanted to be a mom and was looking forward to being a stay-at-home mom. Right now, our children are 14 and 12 years old. I have a good job and my wife stays home taking care of the house. This arrangement has always suited her, but recently she has begun to mention that she feels a bit lonely and lacks friends, especially now that the kids are older and she has more time to herself. Indeed, our social life mostly consisted of meetings with my work colleagues and their wives, whom my wife can hardly call friends. That's why I was happy at first when my wife ran into her best friend from college, let's call her Anna. According to my wife, they got along so well as if they didn't have an almost 14-year-old break in contact. When my wife got pregnant, she drifted apart from her college friends. They started meeting for coffee quite often. When my wife returned from these meetings, she was overjoyed and excited and told me a lot about Anna. It was then that I began to worry. During the time my wife had no contact with her, Anna got her PhD in literature, started teaching at the university, and became the editor of one of the most important cultural magazines in our country. Her husband is an award-winning writer, apparently very well recognized. It's hard for me to say anything about this. I have no idea about literature. They earn well, do not have and do not want children, and basically lead a carefree lifestyle completely different than ours. They have lots of friends from their literary academic circle, consider these friends family, and go several times a week to various author meetings, galas, gallery openings, and God knows what else. From what I've gathered, they are also much more progressive and liberal than I am. For example, they divide all of their chores and bills 50-50, and they have a mixed gender group of friends. Anna is friends with men and her husband with women, which I always considered inappropriate in a serious relationship. My wife invited Anna and her husband for dinner because she really wanted me to meet them. She hoped we would both start going to all these cultural events with them. They were very polite and respectful and didn't comment in any way on the differences in our lifestyles, but dinner was nevertheless quite tiresome for me as I don't have any common topics with them. While my wife knows that I don't share her passion for literature, just as she doesn't share my interest in technology. But this has never been an issue in our marriage. We traveled together, went on bike trips, went to our favorite restaurants and movies, etc. I didn't understand why she suddenly wanted this to change. Anna started taking my wife to some of the literary events organized by her magazine and also invited her to write a couple of reviews for a column she is running. She apparently sees great potential in my wife and appreciates her insight, which my wife accepted with great joy. I was torn. On the one hand, I was happy that my wife didn't feel alone and that she had something to do when the kids are at school with their friends. On the other hand, I was afraid that I was losing my wife, that she would turn into someone else under Anna's influence. I was also afraid that other men will hit on her at the events Anna invites her to, even though my wife repeats that all of Anna's friends know that she is married and a mother. They never cross any boundaries and always speak of her family with respect. I finally told my wife that I was uncomfortable with her friendship with Anna, that I was afraid this relationship would change her for the worse, and that she would no longer care about our marriage and children. I said that I can't forbid her to do anything, but that I would feel much better if she didn't go to all these events with Anna, and if she didn't accept an offer to write reviews for her magazine. My wife said that the friendship with Anna is very important to her, that she had been feeling depressed lately, spending most of the day at home all alone, and that contact with people with whom she can talk about things she's passionate about has made her feel significantly better. I promised to her that I will work less and I will spend more time with her. I also repeated that I cannot forbid her to see Anna and friends, but that this friendship really makes me uncomfortable. She was sad, but understood me and said that she will stop spending time with Anna. Yesterday, I talked to my older brother, whose advice I always appreciate about this situation. He said that me and my wife married really young and that it's understandable that she might feel like she's missing out on things outside family life. He also said that the only way to make sure that my wife is with me because she really loves me and not because she's just stuck with me and has no other options is to give her the freedom to spend time with other people, even though it makes me uncomfortable. It really made me think and question my own behavior. I really don't want to be a person who limits my wife's freedom, but I also don't want to tempt fate in order to see if she really loves me. It would break my heart to lose her, and maybe deep inside, I feel like she would leave me if she had any other options, so I don't want her to have those options. I feel like shit, am I the astronaut?
Story time about how my grandma got married when she was 14 years old. So just picture it. I'm sitting with my 94-year-old grandma in the kitchen. And suddenly she starts talking about my grandpa. My grandpa passed away almost 10 years ago. And to be fair, they did have a wonderful marriage. By all accounts, and by all of my family's accounts, they were totally in love until the moment he took his last breath. Here's how the story goes. The first time they met, she was 12 years old. He had just gotten back from the war. She was walking home from school with her backpack, and my 27-year-old grandpa pulls up in his car. He starts to tell her that she's going to be his future wife, and that he's going to talk to her parents so that they can get married. He kept inviting her into his car, but she kept saying no. He followed her home from school every single day. As my grandma is telling the story, everyone is laughing, except for me. Finally, one day he followed her to her house, knocked on the door, and requested to speak to my great-grandfather. They spoke for an hour, and that's when my great-grandpa promised my grandma to my grandpa, and he gave them permission to get married when she was 14. At first, he wanted them to get to know each other, so they started going on dates. This is when my great-grandfather promised my 12-year-old grandma to my 27-year-old grandfather. My great-grandpa thought that it would be best they wait 2 years so that they can get married when she's 14. In the meantime, he suggested that they start going out on dates. Yes, a 12-year-old girl and a 27-year-old man. By the way, as my grandma is telling this story, all of my cousins are laughing at this. I'm trembling in my seat. She explained to us that for those 2 years, my grandfather was on his best behavior, and that essentially they read books together, they walked together by the lake, and he would take her out to see movies. She said at the time it was a big deal. Going to the movies was like a big treat. I guess it made me feel better knowing that he didn't try to do anything to her at the time. Still, it's absolutely disgusting. Finally, the 2 years passed, and at this point, they're totally in love. They get married. Both their families attended this wedding. How did no one in their families think it was inappropriate? Watching a 14-year-old get married to a 29-year-old man? But it gets worse. 2 years pass and they get married. My grandma even told us that the night of their wedding, my great-grandparents gifted them a night at a hotel so that they could have some privacy. You can imagine what happened. My grandmother described it as the most liberating night of her life. 2 months later, she was pregnant. Their first baby was born right before she turned 15, and then she got pregnant again at 15, and then at 17, and then at 18, 19, and finally 20. My grandfather got into oil in his late 20s. He made about $1 million by the time he was 35. So he was able to give them a very comfortable life. He purchased a manor. They had 3 housekeepers, 1 butler, and 4 nannies. And they had a really happy life. My grandma says my grandpa was always affectionate with her, and she said they blessed their bed every single night. After she finishes telling the story, all of my cousins laugh and think it's cute. I was disturbed. I asked her why it was okay to get married at such a young age. And then I said, would you have wanted me to get married when I was 14? That's when she said that times were just different back then. The war was happening, and people didn't know if they would live or die. She also said that when a catch like my grandfather turned up, most parents were looking for a man like my grandfather to marry off their daughters. Grandpa was educated, handsome, driven, had great work ethic, and he took care of her, which is what he promised my great-grandpa. And then when the children came, he more than took care of them. He even took care of my great-grandparents too. He ended up moving them into the manor in their old age, and they were fully taken care of by the staff. Apparently, the manor was big enough to fit in 4 families. Now, I loved my grandfather. He was a great, kind man, and I myself benefited off the generational wealth. He paid for my education, and I'm now a lawyer for it. But still, a huge part of me feels absolutely disgusted with the history of their love. Even though back then that might have been normal, I think it's horrendous. Yes, they had a great love story, but she was a child. Apparently, this was a big family secret. None of the uncles or my parents wanted us to know. I got into a huge argument with my parents for hiding this from me. They think I'm totally overreacting. Am I, though? I guess I'll need more therapy. What do you think?
My 60 male, son-in-law, 28 male, has the opportunity to become a NASA astronaut, but my daughter, 27 female, is holding him back. In 2012, my family and my now son-in-law, 17 male, now 28 male, were sitting outside of Dulles International Airport to see the Discovery space shuttle fly in. It flew right over us and was one of the coolest experiences I had ever seen. And for everyone else, it was just that. But for my son-in-law, it was clearly something far more than just a cool experience. Fast forward almost 12 years later, and my son-in-law is now a test pilot in the Air Force. He has flown various aircrafts, including the F-16, F-22, and other aircrafts that I don't even know about. He's very young for his position, but he has been very dedicated towards his end goal of being a NASA astronaut. Despite lacking some of the various requirements, his superiors have recommended him to NASA with a lot of positive feedback. He's so close to achieving his dream, with the only problem being my daughter. She is terrified he'll somehow die in either a training accident, flight, or some other obscure way. She has apparently thrown many tantrums over it, throwing things, hitting him, and threatening to leave him and take my grandson away. She is refusing therapy, and my son-in-law has said he is considering to cease further attempts to make it into the astronaut program if it means he stays married. I can't stress how rare of an opportunity this is, not just for him, but anyone. And as for someone who's witnessed his passion manifest, I want him to go for it. And I don't want my daughter to stop him, but I also don't want their marriage to fall apart because of it and have my grandson shared between them. My daughter has acted this way before when he has taken his career in a different way as expected, but I don't want to advise my son-in-law to continue with his career on a possible bluff just for it to turn out to be real this time. He wants advice, and now I need it.
Am I the astronaut for yelling at my boyfriend for waking me up when I don't need to be awake? For background, my boyfriend and I are both 29 and have lived together for 3 years. And this morning when I yelled at him, he told me to post the situation to Reddit. The whole time we've lived together, he's had this incredibly irritating need to wake me up when he wakes up, even when I don't need to be awake yet. He can fall asleep on a dime, but it usually takes me at least an hour to pass out. Melatonin gives me the worst nightmares, so that's a no-go. On top of that, I very frequently wake up a few times in the night. For the record, every time he sleeps, I let him sleep. It's Saturday and I woke up earlier than him. I just hang out quietly on my phone or go to the living room if I'm going to be any semblance of loud. He's taking a nap, lights are off. I make everyone be quiet and I leave him be because sleep is important. He has let me nap longer than 30 minutes, maybe 4 or 5 times. He says that he does this stuff because normal couples want to spend time together, but it feels like a control thing to me. He's very often out all weekend and some weeknights, which I don't mind at all because friendships are super important, but that shoots down the quality time narrative for me. I have 2 kids from a previous relationship that are 8 and 6. Both kids have strep throat right now, and one has scarlet fever on top of it. Damn. I currently also have strep. I have a constant headache, my throat and body hurt, and I am especially tired. Last night, he fell asleep at 12. I fell asleep at 1:30 and got up for the kids at 2:45 and 4. He gets up at 6:30 for work, and he woke me up at 7 for zero reason. Since he pulled this yesterday, waking me up to lock the door for him as he'd left his keys at work, I gave him my spare key the evening before so he could go to the gym. It was on the kitchen counter. I yelled, read sternly admonished, I can't physically yell right now, at him, asking what on earth he feels the need to wake me up for. Does he feel wronged having to be the only one awake? Why would you not care about the needs of your girlfriend? I don't get it. He gave me the normal couples blah, 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 and told me to post it here for judgment. Just for context, he works 8 to 5. I'm in college full-time and pursuing a separate certificate on top of that. He does not pay my bills or for anything my kids or I need, so it can't be resentment from that. All the chores that get done were done by me. He does start his own laundry and wash his own dishes most of the time, so it can't be that either. Pass your judgment upon us, oh Reddit.
Why my grandma and granddaddy just got the fame? And not no play fight, baby. Licks was thrown, bowls was throwed. When he get mad at my grandma and throw a fit, baby, he go sits in the car. He leaves the car running for so long, the battery dies. And this happens like all the time. So he expect my grandma to call that car insurance company every time the car need to be jumped off. Well, my grandma was like, nope, not this time, baby. You will just not have a car. Why my granddaddy was sitting there so mad on the porch that he could not move that truck and go nowhere, which he don't need to be driving anyway. My granddaddy is 80 years old, baby, with a broke hip and a broke shoulder. So we all sitting down there eating our food. He got so mad at my grandma, and my grandma was like, well, you can have a piece of mine. He was like, I don't want a piece of yours. My grandma was like, well, you don't want none anyway. Granddaddy got so mad, he put his hand on my grandma's face and scrunched my grandma's face up. It happened so fast, but yet so slow. So when he scrunched my grandma's face up like this, for her to stop talking to him, my grandma then put her chicken down and went to go hit my granddaddy back. My granddaddy went to go jack my grandma up. But then my grandma took his shirt to jack him up too. So they had a standoff, baby. It's in there to stand off, y'all, and they holding each other. So my mama go to break them up. He reached back and tried to hit my mama, but the move so slow, my mama caught it on. Why my granddaddy went to call the police on my mama said she was beating on the elderly? My granddad is really mad that nobody didn't jump his truck off. So he told the police that we was holding him hostage. Long story short, we on the way to bail my granddad out of jail, y'all. Okay.